Hello, my name is Paul Shives. I'm the Township Business Administrator for Toms River Township, and it is my pleasure today to present the Mayor's proposed budget for calendar year 2014. This budget was subject to a public hearing that was held Tuesday, May the 6th, 2014, and the budget is being presented on behalf of Mayor Tom Kelleher. This slide is a summary of the revenue and expenditures in the Township 2014 budget as introduced and as proposed by Mayor Kelleher. The left side of the slide is the revenue, the right side of the slide is the expenditure portion of the budget. A couple of noteworthy items under the revenue. First, the surplus is a little under $8 million. That represents an increase of almost $5 million over what was appropriated last year. And the reason for that increase is principally to take up the slack based on the fact that we are short about $5 million in state aid this year that we had last year. Other noteworthy items on the revenue side are delinquent tax revenue was down about $2 million, which is actually a good thing in a way. It shows that there's less delinquent tax revenue to collect. Unfortunately, that revenue has to be made up in other ways, and you can see that spread throughout the budget. The Uniform Construction Code fees represent our building permit fees of $2.2 million. That is totally offset by the expenditure side, and therefore there's no impact on the tax rate. On the expenditure side, a couple of noteworthy items. First, our reserve for uncollected taxes is $9.4 million, which is a state-mandated expenditure. Since the township is the tax collecting entity for the county, school board, and local fire district tax, we must make sure that we have enough revenue on hand to pay over to those taxing entities 100% of all the taxes that they levy. Since no tax collector can collect 100% of the taxes, we must set aside a reserve in our budget to make sure that we can pay over all of those funds. That has a significant impact. $9.4 million is a little over 4.5 cents of our tax rate. Also would point out that in the expenditure side of the budget that we have other line items that are important, and we'll go into them more in the next slide, but public safety and public works are perhaps the two most important service delivery categories that we have. This is a pie chart showing the expenditures by category. You can see a couple of things that jump out. First, public safety, which includes the police department, is at 21%. Public works, engineering, recreation at 15%. When you add those two categories together and include the benefits for the employees in those departments, it represents about 42% of the township budget. And that's a good thing because that shows where the direct service categories are in the budget. Public works services, which include sanitation, recycling, and roads maintenance, and public safety, which includes the police department. As you can see, the reserve for uncollected taxes here again is about 8% of the township budget, which is an expenditure, again, that is basically a dead expenditure. The township does not utilize that unless tax collections fall short. Insurance and employee benefits is about 24% of the township budget. That is a large portion to be spent on insurance and employee benefits. There are some measures we have taken to try to reduce those numbers going forward, and I will highlight those later on in the presentation. This next slide is a pie chart showing the revenue in the 2014 budget. A couple of things are noteworthy. As I said, we've increased our surplus or our fund balance this year. It's 6% of the overall revenue base. The delinquent tax revenue is 4%, which is down from last year. Our state aid numbers are down as well. We are down about $5 million in state aid, which I will go over later on. And the local tax revenue is 57% of the budget, which means that 43% of the budget is supported by revenue other than local property taxes. And the tax increase this year is 3.8 cents per $100 of assessed valuation based on the proposed budget. Next slide details the first of many budget challenges we faced this year in preparing the budget. Our rateable base was severely damaged by Superstorm Sandy to the extent of about $2 billion that was lost. Fortunately, this year we have seen some recovery in that rateable base of about $1 billion, which is about half of what was lost, and that is very good in terms of showing some recovery. And as you can see from this slide, this is a comparison of our assessed valuation from 2013 to 2014, and there is an increase of about 9.4% in the overall assessed valuation, as I said, most of which can be found in the residential line item, which is the second one shown. Again, increase of about $1 billion, showing a significant recovery. We estimate, however, that the balance of that recovery for the damaged properties is going to take another 3 to 5 years. This chart shows the assessed valuation since the revaluation was completed in 2009. When the revaluation was done, we had a township record high of $17.5 billion in assessed value. That has steadily decreased until, as you can see from Superstorm Sandy in 2013, that value fell to a little under $11.4 billion. So we've lost well over $4 billion in assessed valuation in that 4-year time frame. The last column is the assessed valuation this year, which we went over in the previous slide, shows a recovery of about $1 billion. Other major challenges we faced in this year's budget: first and foremost, 5 major snowstorms. Although the weather is nice and pleasant now, and it's easy to forget, we did have 5 major snowstorms that affected this budget since January 1st, resulting in an increase of $1.2 million in our snow removal costs for 2014. That is about 1 cent of the increase in the tax rate, which is attributable to the snowstorms. We had to increase our reserve for tax appeals this year. We have $1 million set aside for tax appeals. We are right now have about 500 appeals that have been filed, but we had to set money aside in reserve because we are not sure what the county tax board will do with those appeals. Third, we had temporary staffing increases in departments where the Sandy recovery continues, most notably in the building inspection, zoning, engineering departments. Our health care costs have increased. We have estimated a 9% increase in health insurance costs this year. That is a nationwide trend, not limited to Toms River or to municipal government. We've increased our reserve, as I've mentioned, for uncollected taxes by $350,000, and we decreased our anticipated state Sandy assistance by $5 million because we had a one-shot revenue last year called the Community Disaster Loan of $5 million, which is not available for any future years. And we had the decrease in anticipated revenue for delinquent taxes of about $2 million. How did we meet those challenges? Well, first, we fully offset the increased staffing in the building inspection department expenditure by revenue from that department. So there's no impact on taxes from that increase. Second, we utilized more fund balance or surplus revenue, almost $5 million more, to try to offset the loss of the $5 million CDL loan. We had department heads freeze their other expense line items for the 4th budget year in a row. And that is a significant challenge, especially when we all realize that there are increases in prices that we can't control. But our department heads are doing more with less, and they're showing that they can manage under these trying circumstances. We now have all of our employees, full-time employees, paying health insurance premium copays, and we have also instituted less expensive health insurance plans for all of our new employees to try to conserve and reduce those costs. We've negotiated new contracts with 4 unions, and in the process have negotiated new, lower, reduced salary scales for new employees in all of those departments and in all those contracts. We've also reduced the benefits for new employees to try to cut down on those costs. Municipalities in New Jersey have to address 2 important budget caps within which they must prepare budgets. The first is something called the levy or tax cap, property tax cap. The maximum amount that we could raise under the state formula is about $77.3 million in taxes. Fortunately, we are well below that at $70.9 million. We are about $6.4 million below the state mandated levy cap. The second cap we have to deal with is something called the appropriations cap, which is the expenditure side of the budget. And we are, as you can see by this chart, we're $16.4 million under the appropriations cap with this budget. So the township budget as proposed by Mayor Kelleher complies in all respects with both the levy and appropriations cap. Perhaps the most important measure of the success or failure of a budget is the impact on municipal property taxes for the average municipal taxpayer. This next chart shows the average municipal property taxes paid by taxpayers in Toms River from 2011 through 2014. In 2011, the average municipal property taxpayer paid approximately $1,334 in municipal taxes. In 2012, that went to $1,413. It went down significantly last year because of all the state aid we received after Sandy to $1,274, and back up this year to approximately the same level it was in 2011, $1,365.98. Still well below what the average was in 2012, 2 years ago. The other question is, we get quite frequently, we pay our property taxes to you, does all that money stay with Toms River Township? And the answer is no. We are the tax collecting agency for all of the tax entities, including the school district, which receives about half of every tax dollar. As you can see from this chart, the school district on here is 49% of every tax dollar. The county, Ocean County, receives 21 cents of every tax dollar. So Toms River Township, for all of the services we provide, simply retains only 30% of what you pay in property taxes. The balance is paid over to the other taxing entities. Another property tax comparison is, how do our taxes compare in Toms River Township with the county average and what other municipalities charge their residents and statewide? Well, in Toms River in 2013, the average property owner paid a little over $4,700 in total property taxes. That compared very favorably against both the county average and the state average. Toms River Township taxpayers paid 22% less on average than county taxpayers and 41% less than those on average in the state of New Jersey. So on both of these very important comparison criteria, we compare extremely well. That is the budget presentation for the 2014 budget as introduced. As I said, the public hearing was held on Tuesday, May 6th, and the budget awaits adoption once the final state aid numbers are known.